my channel. So today I'm going to be doing my January wrap up. So I'm going to be talking about all the books that I've read this month, what star ratings I gave them, and just generally ideas of what I thought about them. So this month I read a total of 9 books. I mean, it's the 31st today, and I'm hoping to finish Because You Love to Hate Me, which is sitting on my bed behind me. But I don't know if that's going to happen because I needed to get some filming done today. So I'm going to say 9 books for now, although most of the time when people ask me I normally say 10, but technically it's still only 9. What I might also do at the end is talk about the books I'm currently reading, just to give you an idea of where I'm at with my reading. So I think that's what I might do for each of my January wrap-ups, is talk about all the books I read that month, and then talk about all the books that I'm currently reading at the end of that month, and then we can kind of just go through the cycle again. But we'll see how we go, because I've had a really good reading month this month, and I don't know how it's going to go next month. So we'll start off with the books that I physically own. So the first book I finished, which I talked about in my January TBR, is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. Now I do have the new paperback edition as well. So I have both of these copies, but this is the copy I read, so I thought I'd show you this one. For those of you who don't know, City of Bones, or the Mortal Instruments series, is about this girl called Clary Frey, and basically she stumbles upon a world, a shadow world, that she doesn't realise that she's part of. At the same moment that she realises that she might actually be part of this shadow world, her mother goes missing. So this book is all about her trying to find her mother and dealing with the fact that her mum has kept such a huge secret about who she was from her. So, and you know, there's obviously a love interest in this. It's the first book of 6 books in the Mortal Instruments series, but Cassandra Clare does also have another 2 trilogies and about 3 or 4 collections of novellas associated with the Shadowhunter world as well. So there's quite a few books in this series. But I really enjoy this one. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. No, 4 out of 5 stars. Because it was a really good read. I really enjoyed it. It's such a beautiful introduction to the world of wizards and vampires and werewolves and shadow hunters, and it's something I would definitely recommend you go and read on your own accord. Most people know what this is about anyway. Most people within the booktube community have at least tried to read it, so most people I know love it. I read this in association with my read along with the Dreg Society Facebook group. I'm really happy that I managed to complete this. The next book that I read this month, part of a 24-hour readathon that I did towards the beginning of the month to help me understand the way of the readathons and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed doing the readathon. It was very different to how I was expecting. If I wanted to do one where I stayed awake for 24 hours, I would have to find like 2-3 days where I knew I could recover. So I'm thinking maybe during the school holidays when I'm not at work. If you can hear that, that is my dog. I don't know if you can see him. Hello, Trouble. Oh, I saw the tail wag. I saw the tail wag. Yes, I did. Look, it's wagging. You stopped, you cheeky sausage. There we go, it's going again. Oh, Muffin. I love you. So, but the next book that I read during that readathon was a non-fiction book called Very British Problems by Rob Temple. Hold on, I'm going to go check on the dog. Right, sorry about that. He wanted a chew, his cupboard was slightly open, so yeah, he hasn't got anything. I did give him his biscuit, but he doesn't seem to want to eat it. So he doesn't want us to eat the biscuit, so I'm not going to worry about it. So yeah, the next book is Very British Problems by Rob Temple. It was a very quick read, like it was a lot like this. Oh, I don't know if that's focusing, but so yeah, it was a very quick read. It was only 200, just over 200 pages. I think I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, purely for the simple fact that I really enjoyed what was being said in the book. It was very true to the British culture that I've been a part of. Some of it I feel was a bit old-fashioned. It's aimed at like older generations, but for me, the stuff I did read, especially the stuff about driving and the stuff about over apologising and things like that, that's that's of a very British nature. So I very much enjoyed this. I don't know, because there is another one of these. I think it's called The Very British Problems While Abroad, or something along those lines. So I might look into that, but then I haven't really gone abroad that much, so I don't know how much of it I will relate to. Now, my last physical book is a book that Clockwork Readers, Hannah from Clockwork Reads, keeps going on and on and on about. So I thought I'd finally give it a try. And that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now, this book took me basically most of January to finish, because it is like 600 pages, 700 pages long. And it was a 5 out of 5 stars read. It was just so whimsical and magical, and you could literally, it was so lyrically written that you could imagine yourself at the circus. It was like you could smell the caramel in the air. You could imagine the toffee apples and the tents with the acrobats and the illusionist and the ice garden and all that. You could just imagine everything that was being depicted. So for those of you who don't know, this is about the Night Circus, where it opens at dusk and closes at dawn. And I can't really say too much about the story without spoiling anything, but basically there are these two characters who have basically been pitted against each other, for lack of a better term, using their skills, shall we say. And because of that, the circus is therefore created, and this circus then affects so many other lives that you kind of get to see. So you read the book from many different perspectives. It's not just the two competitors, it's about all these different people, like the guy who made the clock for the circus, the woman who Marco, the main guy, has a relationship with. It's about the two, like, people who are training the two competitors, and you kind of see it from about, I think it's 6 or 7 different perspectives. And for the first half of the book, you're reading it and you're going, what? Well, how does this all integrate with each other? How does it all connect? But then by the end of the book, it's you understand every single page you've read and why it's so important in the book. Every word is important and nothing should be overlooked, which is why I spent so long reading this book, because I wanted to do it justice. I knew it was going to be good. It was right up my alley with the type of storyline, and I just knew I'd love it, but I wanted to make sure that I took every word in, because of how heavy it is. Like, the actual physical book is heavy, but also how intense it is. You don't want to miss anything. So I didn't rush read it, which I very much could have done, but I took my time. I read maybe a chapter or two every night, and I just took my time to make sure I understood what was going on, who each of the characters were. And Erin Morgenstern, I just adore it. It's just so well written. I can't think of a better book to read during winter. I can't compliment this book enough. 5 out of 5 stars, as you can probably tell. And I loved it. It was just brilliant. Now, the next few books, I'm going to have to slot the picture of the book somewhere up here somewhere. So firstly, I want to talk about The Sun and Her Flowers by Ruby Carr. That is a collection of poetry. I think it's only about 200 pages, but I read the ebook version, so I don't know for sure. The poems are all to do with a lot of heavy topics like love, loss, rape, gender equality, grief. Yeah, there was just so much involved, and every poem, whether it be a page and a half long or 2 lines long, was beautifully written. You could tell that this isn't just her writing poetry, it's her writing about her own experiences. And I'm not usually a huge fan of poetry. It's like too much metaphor. Like when I read something, I want to understand what's being written, but with metaphors, I know the point is that you're meant to interpret it yourself. But sometimes I just find poetry leans too far that way for me to enjoy it, especially when it's every single word. Like, I understand the occasional metaphor in books to kind of give you an idea of how serious the situation is or how in love somebody is with the other person. But when it comes to poetry, I just tend to get very hit and miss with it. But I really enjoyed The Sun and Her Flowers. I thought it was beautifully written. The poetry was very simple, the metaphors were quite simple, they weren't in every line. Like every line was purposefully written to be simple but also metaphoric as well, and I really liked the way it kind of wove together. I like the fact that I don't know whether she wrote it to aim towards young adults and teenagers, but that's what I liked about it, because it wasn't overly complicated. There was no trying to figure out the like what type of poem it was, I think maybe because most of the poetry I read was during school when you have to analyse it and dissect it. I just found that entirely irritating. So just to read the poems and understand the meaning behind them and not feel like I have to depict every single word that's being put on the page in front of me, I really enjoyed it. I haven't read Milk and Honey yet. Let me know if you think that's worth reading. I've heard mixed reviews about it. People say that The Sun and Her Flowers is a lot better than Honey and Milk. Some people say it's just as good. Just let me know what you think, and if I ever get around to it, if I want a short read during a readathon of some description, I can hopefully read that. 5 out of 5 stars for that book, which is quite surprising for poetry for me, but there you go. Now the next 5 books are the Lunar Chronicles series. So I'll try and talk about each book individually, but I'll probably talk more about Cinder for the simple fact that I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. So I will list off the names and give you a brief description of each book and the star ratings, but again I may not go into too many details about like the back end of the series, because I don't want you to get spoiled if you decide you want to read them yourselves. Most people have read them by now. Yeah, but I'll keep it spoilery. No. Firstly, I should say all of these books are written by Marissa Meyer. So first we have Cinder, which is a fairy tale retelling of Cinderella, but it's set in a sci-fi world and Cinderella's a cyborg. Now you may be thinking, huh? What? It's not as doesn't lean that far into the cyborg side. Like there is that aspect, but she just basically has prosthetic limbs. Like she has a prosthetic foot and a prosthetic hand because of an accident that happened to her when she was a young child. Yeah, so Cinder is basically a cyborg and she does something to upset her stepmother, and basically there's also this plague that happens in the Commonwealth where she lives, and basically one of her stepsisters, the stepsister that she actually likes, contracts this illness, and basically her stepmother doesn't blame Cinder for it, so she puts her into the cyborg draft at the palace, which is basically this doctor's trying to find a cure for the disease, so she ends up being put into the draft against her knowledge, and from there, against her will, and kind of from there the whole story kind of continues. So you get to meet the prince. You also get chapters where it's written from Prince Kai's perspective, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was a new twist on it, because you don't normally get to see the prince's side to the story. It's normally Cinderella all the time, which is fine. You kind of get to see their relationship, if you like. The thing about this series is what I like about it is that every piece of information weaves together. Like every character has some part to play in the events that take place. So Cinder I gave 5 out of 5 stars to, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was hooked from the moment I started reading it. Then we have Scarlett, which is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. And that is basically all about her going in search of her grandmare when her grandmare goes missing. But during Scarlett you also get to see Cinder's point of view and how her story's progressing. So I like the kind of the flashbacks. Now I loved Scarlett. I loved Scarlett the book. Like, it was very well written. It was very, like, you could tell that it was what it was based off of, and her relationship with Wolf was very well written, and I really enjoyed that. Now Scarlett's probably my least favourite book out of the entire series, because I found it very repetitive in the first half of the series, the first half of the book, and half of the book, when you get to see her away from all of the grandmare drama, I quite enjoyed. So getting to see their her budding relationship with Wolf was quite. I think I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, because it wasn't my favourite, but I still enjoyed it. Next is Cress, which is a retelling of Rapunzel. Now Cress isn't locked in a tower, but in a satellite. You also find how important and how intricate she's been in Cinder's and Scarlett's lives, whether they realise it or not. So you also get to see Cinder and Scarlett and their relationship kind of bud in that one, and I really like that. I love Cress. I think she's so sweet and adorable, and despite the fact that she's been locked in a satellite for like 7 years, she's still there ready to kick butt, and you know, she's really eager to just get involved. So I really enjoyed that. I loved everything about that book. It was 5 out of 5 for me. I love it. The only thing I didn't like about it was that it ended. So yeah, it's probably my favourite one. Next is Winter. Now Winter is a retelling of Snow White, and it kind of brings a conclusion to Cinder's, Scarlett's and Cress's story. You get to know how they all kind of, what the main goal of the story is, and what's been happening with Winter. Now I enjoyed Winter because I liked the fact that it kind of brought a conclusion to everything. I liked the fact that it was, you kind of got to see all these characters bud in different friendships and relationships and stuff like that. But the first half of the book is mostly focused on Winter, and basically there's this race of people in the series called the Lunars, and they have this gift to manipulate people, and this is what Winter's decided to do. She said to herself, no more, I do not want to control anyone, no matter what it's for, whether I believe it's for their own good or not, I will not be controlling them. And so you kind of get to see this craziness and how it links into her being the classic image of what Snow White is, all this whimsical sweetness. She's also very in love with animals and things like that. You also get to see her budding relationship with Jason. So, and then obviously there's so much more to it because of how much it's developed through the series, but I can't go into too much detail without spoiling things for you guys. So 5 out of 5 for this book. I loved it. The only thing I didn't like about it was the fact that it ended. I really wish the whole series could have gone on for another 10 books. I would have gladly read 10 or so books about different fairy tales and different stuff like that. I can't praise the Lunar Chronicles series enough. I thoroughly enjoy it. Now they are the main 4 books, but then you also have 2 novellas in the series, and I read the first one, which is Fairest, which you're meant to read between book 2 and 3, so between Scarlett and Cress, but I read it afterwards because I wanted to read it in publication order, and because the premise of this book, I wasn't overly eager to read it. Basically the premise of Fairest is the evil queen. So you basically get to see what had conspired in her life to make her the evil that she is. And I enjoyed it. Like, I thought it was good. I thought it was very well written, as per usual with Marissa Meyer's writing, but I couldn't sympathise with such a horrid person. Like, I understand that she went through a lot and I felt sorry for her, but for the most part I couldn't accept that just because you've gone through what you have, you turn yourself into what you become. And also, like, I found a lot of what happened to her, conspired throughout her entire life, was her own fault. Like, there was some stuff that, okay, that wasn't her fault, I get that that might have singed her to be the person she is, but any decision from then till the moment that the book ends, I couldn't feel sorry for her, because she did it to herself. I think I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, which, again, the more I'm thinking about it, seems quite generous. It was nice to know her story in more detail because it makes the rest of the series make sense, but overall I didn't enjoy it. So those are my 9 books that I read this month. Yeah, I will speak to you guys in my next video. Don't forget to subscribe. I will leave all my social media down below as usual, and I will see you later. Bye.